Today's topic are the stages of unconscious bias. This is a pretty big topic right now. It's growing in a lot of companies. There's more training in unconscious bias, and I'm guessing that there's also more training in schools. So the first stage is often standing up to friends and family when we're young. And this stage is where we notice that there are some perspectives or behaviors that are unfair, and there's not enough attention to people's feelings or what is politically correct. This can lead to kind of having conflicts with family and friends. It can lead to like being labeled a difficult person or being labeled some kind of black sheep in a family because we keep standing up to people about racism or sexism or whatever else they're conditioned to kind of align with. And so this stage is awkward and it can feel lonely. And it can either trigger a person to become more vocal and more politically aware, or it can trigger someone to kind of shut down and just like not speak up anymore. And that has different impacts when we're older, we're in school, we're working in offices and things. If we stop like standing up for what's right with family and friends, we might be inclined to stop standing up for what's right when we're actually out in the world working, like building things. So the next stage, I call it ignorance is bliss, but what it really is just kind of going along with our life and in our perspective, treating people equally and treating people the way that we would like to be treated, or we think that we're doing that. So ignorance is bliss is a really nice stage because we're just socializing. We might be a little bit older. We might be a young adult working in different environments, going to different schools, hanging out with different people. And we are just behaving in a way that feels natural to us. And we may or may not be aware of whether we're treating people unequally and whether or not we're approaching situations with a strong bias. So it's like this stage, I think, feels the most free because we're just being and we're not like self-conscious of things as much. That's like how we express our awareness of what's fair and what's not fair, is that we start spending time with people and in different environments where the values align with ours more. So the next stage is recognizing patterns. Pattern recognition is starting to realize like the different ways that we're treated based on stereotypes, and also recognizing in the outside world how people talk about other people, how people treat other people, and just noticing like patterns. So patterns are, like certain perspectives that are associated to a certain race or associated to a certain gender or associated to a certain sexual orientation. So this stage usually bleeds into an interest into self-improvement. That's the next stage. So instead of like just becoming overly critical of others, we might start to want self-improvement in ourselves. We might want to learn more about our family history, our ancestral history. We might have more interest in like reading about politics or studying politics and political history so that we can improve the way that we are communicating and the way that we are approaching and responding to situations. And in this stage, we will start acknowledging our own privilege and our own unconscious biases. So the things that may have been passed on to us that we're not even aware of, we'll start recognizing like when we are making assumptions, we have a perspective that is not necessarily for the betterment of everyone. And yeah, we just like realize our own privileges. We realize like the things that we don't pay attention to. So we might grow up paying attention to certain things and whether or not certain things are fair, but then there's a lot of other things that we may not realize or may not pay attention to when we're out and about. And the next the next stage is like becoming hypercritical, and this is a very awkward stage because we're hypercritical of ourselves and we're hypercritical of other people, and we want to speak up, we want to be vocal, we want to like actually stand for what's right, but then it's it's like one of those things where we also have to realize like when we're not having compassion in a situation, or when we're not having understanding, or we're not approaching something gentle enough. So it's like learning that line between being firm and being gentle with ourselves and with other people is really tough, and it can be messy. And the next stage is wanting to be inclusive. So we might be studying, we might be getting better in ourselves, and then we have this desire where we want to be more inclusive, but we may not know how to go about it. We may study it, but we may try to be inclusive and get a bunch of stuff wrong. So that's bleeding into the next phase, which is saying and doing all the wrong things. And this is the most, for me, this is the most uncomfortable stage, is when we are living, we are working, we are going to events, we're spending time with different people, and we are trying to be inclusive, and we are trying to override some of the behaviors and perspectives that we've had that have not been for the betterment of all people. But then we end up saying and doing all the wrong things because we're nervous, and we end up like trying to overcompensate for like normally like not noticing a situation, or not being like standing up for what's right. Sometimes we end up like overcompensating, making people feel awkward, and overthinking things. So in this stage, we might be trying to like include someone in a group, like someone who's more quiet, or someone who's a different race than us, or somebody who's differently abled, and then that person might actually be kind of offended about the way that we approach it. Like they might feel like, oh, I don't want your pity, and they might feel like this person is like being too friendly, or being like trying to talk about political things too much. And the thing is about this stage is that we just have to move through it. It's awkward. And just because we're trying to be inclusive, it doesn't mean that the other person is trying to be inclusive. So if they have a bias against us, they might not want us to talk to them, or they might not want like it's one of those things where in some situations they're going to feel like left out, or they're going to feel like, oh, nobody, like, nobody's like actually paying attention to me, or people are being gender biased in this environment, or racist in this environment. But then if you talk to them, if you try to include them, or if you try to talk about something on a deeper level, they might also be kind of upset about that and feel like it's not approached properly or appropriately. So this stage is like, we just have to keep trying, and be like, let it be messy, and just allow it to be refined over time. Like it's just going to over time get a little bit better and a little bit better. And the last stage is relaxing into this, realizing that it's a process, it's messy, and it's lifelong. So a person can be involved in like political discussions, political awareness, and studying these things their whole life, and then as a society we just move forward like that much, and then the next generation picks up where we left off, and they keep studying and they keep trying, and we just have to have like a bigger perspective that empire after empire, kingdom after kingdom has risen and fallen, and in every situation there's been people that have been violated, there's been really unfair circumstances, and it is like every society will just keep, there's going to be some people who fight for what they view as right, there's going to be some people who are complacent, there's going to be some people who don't pay any attention to politics or history, and what's fair and what's not fair. And that's just part of being part of a society, being part of a community where everybody's different, everyone has a different life experience, they have different values, and they pay attention to different things. And so, yeah, that's like the last stage, is just relaxing, like working on things little by little, trying to be better than we were yesterday, trying to learn and discern when to stand up for something and when to pull back, and trying to like be true to our values, but also respect the autonomy of others and respect that people have grown up like in different times, they've grown up in different cultures, and we just have to keep focusing on what leadership means to us and allowing other people to move through the stages of life, like, and just be a good example. And yeah, like speak when it is necessary, speak when it is when it would be helpful to do so, and speak when, like, just as a person, we wouldn't have respect for ourselves if we were silent. But then other situations, like, lean towards compassion, lean towards understanding, and lean towards, like, people, like, nobody's gonna be always pleased. So when we do make mistakes, when we do say the wrong thing, when we are trying to include someone who doesn't want to be included, or when we try to leave that person alone and then they're upset about that, like, we just have to like move through the ebb and flow of all the different personalities and perspectives and feelings that other people have, and keep going and keep trying. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below, and I'm sending you lots of blessings from Toronto.